Hello and welcome to Fantastic Fights, the podcast about a middle-aged man playing adventure game books out loud on the internet. That middle-aged man is me, Hieronymus J. Doom, and this episode we are playing Return of the Vampire by Keith Martin, with art by series regular Martin McKenna. Don't forget, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support my nonsense by going to patreon.com/HJDoom and pledging as little as a single English pound. In return, you'll get a whole bunch of gaming materials written by members of the Doom household. My latest game book, Mutiny Most Merited, about pirates and that, is pretty good fun, I reckon. Maybe check it out. Revenge of the Vampire is a sequel to the wonderful Vault of the Vampire, which did a great job of throwing together Hammer horror vibes with a relatively classic fantasy adventure structure. It was notable for some very well-developed NPCs that really added to the gothic atmosphere. That book also had art by Martin McKenna, and both books sport Les Edwards covers. Vault of the Vampire had a real horror energy, with the vampire leering out at the viewer with a grinning bloody mouth. By contrast, the vampire on the cover of Revenge of the Vampire looks more pensive than anything else. He's got one arm raised, but it's less menacing and more as though he's been caught in the middle of one of those nursery rhymes that have silly actions that go with them. In the background, there are three skeletons that give the uncanny feeling that they're gossiping about him somehow. Overall, there's less menace and more a sort of quiet desperation as of an entertainer at a children's party where the audience has just turned. It doesn't help that the designers haven't quite been able to settle on a font for the title, so Revenge of the is in spooky white letters, but the word vampire looks as though it's been written in felt tip by a child. It's a weird look overall. I might be projecting a bit about Vault of the Vampire's cover, because I have heard rumours that this book might not be the expert swan song that we might have hoped for from Keith Martin. A little bird told me that it might be quite badly broken, actually, and it's more than possible that this knowledge is tinging how I assess things even at this early stage. Still, I will try to keep an open mind regardless as we take a look at the rules. We have skill, stamina and luck all present and correct, and we also have a returning stat from Vault of the Vampire in Faith, which is generated by rolling 1d6 and adding 3 to the score. The rules section mentions magic points, but then tells you that you'll learn about magic when you find magic items, and there's no section on the character sheet for magic points, which kind of feels a bit ominous and maybe setting the tone for the overall level of proofreading that's gone into this. We also get a blood points score, which starts out at 10. This is an abstract representation of the strength of your enemy. It can go up, which is good, but it can also go down if you take too long, and it can even drop into negative numbers, which is very bad. It provides a degree of time pressure, which is appropriate for this kind of story, but as always, it's a bit of a weird fit with the need to constantly explore. We will see how this pans out in the unlikely event that we live long enough to meet the vampire on the recorded playthrough. There's also the latest slightly different riff on the rules for fighting more than one creature, where you have to beat the combat score of all enemies in order to do damage. If any of your opponents roll a higher combat score than you, then you take damage, but you only take 2 damage, even if more than one monster has a higher combat score than you. And it's all explained with reference to the combat steps as laid out in the main combat rules. It's very nice and clearly explained in a single short paragraph, which I very much approve of, and I think this probably should have been the rules from book 1 and just the rules that people then stuck with. I actually prefer some of the more complicated versions from the perspective of making tactical decisions, but this is so simple, so clearly articulated, and defined entirely in minimal changes to the usual system, and these are all important considerations for making rules graspable and concise. Yeah, I think it's just a subtle but nice bit of work. We get reminded that testing your spot skill is just testing your skill with a slightly different name, and yeah, I don't know why it's called testing your spot skill sometimes, other than, I guess, a very small amount of flavour, but it's still 2d6. Try and get under your skill. We do have some kit. We've got sword, we've got armour, we've got shield and lantern, as well as a backpack with a whopping 12 provisions in it. I know Keith Martin likes to treat provisions as an additional resource to manage, so we'll see if we even get the chance to scoff some to improve our stamina, or if they'll just be treated more like the actual food that humans have to regularly shovel into ourselves to avoid dying. I think that's everything I need to cover. I have rolled up a vampire hunter. I have decided to call them Barium Interlope, which I think sounds extremely heroic. Barium has a skill of 10, a stamina of 19, and a luck of 8, and a faith of 9. They begin with 10 blood points, and I think they're ready to tackle Revenge of the Vampire. Background. There is little call for the services of a warrior at this time of year in the town of Gumport, it seems. The eastern coastline of the old world has been all too peaceful for some months. The people there grow fat and lazy, and they're not your type of folk at all. Bored and restless, you sit in a tavern in a miserable little village outside the town, wondering whether to return to Alansia or to seek more interesting and dangerous lands in the old world. Then your eyes turn, as everyone else's do, to an old man who's been helped to a table beside a crackling log fire. He is tall, thin, and stooped, with a livid scar running down his neck, and his hands shake a little as he puts a blackthorn stick down beside the wooden chair into which he lowers himself painfully. He doesn't take off his heavy brown cloak, and even next to the fire, he seems cold. So we've already got our weird old man. Nice to get that particular cliche out of the way before we've even taken control of our character. Always good to see the classics being respected. As his face glows in the reflected firelight, you see that his eyes are opaque and milky. The old man is blind. He seems to be entirely alone, for he was helped to his seat by the landlord's son, and now no one sits with him. In the tavern, a couple of shifty-eyed, rat-faced men, evil-looking sorts, are already gazing at him, and you guess they see him as a soft target. He may well end up in a back alley, with a knife in his back, if they get their way. Scowling at them so they back away like the cowards they are, you walk over with the last of your meal and sit down beside him. He is glad of your company and happy to talk to you. After you have introduced yourself, he says his name is Henrik van der Termelen from Moristatia, as if his accent didn't give that away. He is on his way to visit a friend, a fellow scholar in one of the monasteries which throng the shores of Lake Libra. So this is my chance to work out what a Moristatian accent sounds like. "It will be good to see old Seaworth again," he says, "although I wish the matter concerning us was not so evil, and the time not so short." He falls quiet and sips his ale. You ask him why he's travelling alone in these rough lands. "I was not until yesterday," he says quietly. "But then Otto, my old friend and servant, did not wake from his bed. His body was cold, and his face frozen into a terrible scream." His hand fidgets, as if he was running them over his old friend's face again. "He was murdered, poisoned. Clearly my enemy does not want me to reach my destination." For a moment, you consider the possibility that he might be mad, but he hasn't far to go and you feel sorry for him, so you offer to accompany him to the safety of the monastery. His face breaks into a smile. "You are a good friend, I think," he says happily. "I will be glad of your company. I am tired and need to sleep now, however. I shall see you here in the morning. Though you have not asked, I have a little gold, and you will be rewarded for your kindness." Before you can protest, he gets up and shuffles towards the bedrooms of the tavern, his stick tapping against the wall. You finish your supper and turn in yourself. So, not throwing us into the action exactly, unless you regard getting an early night as action, which, to be fair, in my middle to late 40s, I definitely regard getting an early night as action. I get quite excited about it. Sometimes I go to bed at 10:30 on a Saturday night and I feel so pleased with myself. In the morning there is no sign of Henrik at breakfast. So you go to his room. You knock twice on the door, but there is no reply. Uneasily, you open the door, and entering, you are appalled at what you see. The old man has been killed. A heavy bladed knife protrudes from the crumpled body lying in the blood-soaked bed. Horrified, you reel away, and your foot catches on a small wooden box sticking out from under the bed. As you trip over, the lid falls open, and some papers and gold pieces spill onto the floor. You pick up the papers and look at them. So much for not throwing us into the action. This is great. This is superb. Mysterious old man gets murdered. I mean, it's not superb that the mysterious old man's been murdered. I don't have anything against mysterious old men. I plan to be one day. But, it's definitely upping the action. And not before time too. You pick up the papers and look at them. They are notes addressed to Sueth, and though you don't mean to pry, you can't help glancing through them. Much of what is written here makes little sense to you, but it is clear that Henrik has been hunting an evil fugitive from Mortvania, whose name is Count Rainer Heydrich. Henrik documents his terrible life and his eventual slaying. The man was a monster. Henrik tells of the murders of hundreds of peasants by impaling, the draining of their blood, and much worse. Then your eyes take in the following words. Though Heydrich was slain, he could not be destroyed. Somewhere his life force is contained in a magical artifact which will protect him, although I have not yet learned what this is. I do know that destroying it will be vital. Otherwise, the vampire will be invulnerable. He longs for revenge after he was vanquished in Mortvania. Now he can become far stronger than he ever was in that wretched land. You are stunned. Henrik was a vampire hunter, it seems. The last of the notes begs Sueth to research the soul duel and discover its nature. These must be copies of letters sent by Henrik to the scholar monk. If the latter replied, Henrik doesn't have the letters with him. What should you do now? Henrik is past human aid. You are angry at the cowardly murderers who slew a helpless blind man, but you do not know who they are, and you cannot find them and bring them to justice. Oh, come on, where's your can-do attitude? All you can do now is take these papers to Sueth and hope that Henrik's research will come to fruition. A vampire, the most feared of all the undead. A leecher of life and blood, an appalling evil. Yes, you will take Henrik's letter to the monk. That at least you can do. You hesitate as you look at the gold on the floor. If you leave it, in all likelihood the thieves from the tavern will soon take it. You have a choice at the start of your adventure. Do you want to leave here at once and head for Lake Libra, or do you want to take the gold? So there's an option here for not starting on paragraph 1. Choice of paragraphs actually effectively creating sneakily a 401 section adventure, because there's a choice at the end of the background. I see what you're doing, Keith Martin. Can't fool me, sneaking in an extra section under the noses of the copy editors. But what are we going to do? Are we going to nick the money? Yes we are. You pick up 6 gold pieces off the floor and bundle the papers into your pocket, then head downstairs to leave the tavern. Test your luck. Luck is 8. I roll a 9. My luck is now reduced to 7. I'm unlucky. Halfway down the stairs you bump into the landlord, and he sees blood on your sleeve. His eyes widen and he pushes past you into the old man's room. You run out of the tavern as he starts bellowing, calling the town militia. As you run towards the edge of the village, a couple of burly warriors from the guard yell at you to halt. Do you decide to stop and tell them the truth about what is happening, or would you prefer to keep running? So, this is a bit awkward in the sense that one of the options sends us to talk to the guards, but I noticed that the other one sends us to section 1 exactly as if we had not taken the 6 gold coins. So feeling slightly bad about kind of metagaming it and hoping that this doesn't mean I've missed something vital, I'm going to take the option of keeping on running, and we'll see what happens when we go to section 1. I didn't feel comfortable, I'll be honest, until I've gone to section 1 in a fighting fantasy book. Leaving the village behind you, you make for Lake Libra, following the riverside road. You get a lift on a cart from a friendly farmer and soon find yourself at the lakeside, the papers tucked safely inside your shirt. Then you realise that many monastic settlements throng the lakeside, and you do not know which one Sueth lives in. So you knock on the front door of the first monastery you come to and ask the young monk who opens it if he knows where Sueth can be found. He shakes his head but says that the monks of the Harmaskian monastery will know. There the monks of the gods of learning will tell you where to find Sueth for a small donation. If you have 1 gold piece and are willing to pay them, they tell you where Sueth is to be found. If you can't or won't pay them, you have to keep asking around and you are delayed or lose 1 blood point. So I do have a gold piece, which I will spend. On the facing page of this section, there is a map, which I understand was done by Jonathan Green. And it's a very nice little map. You can see the Shamanti Hills. A little bit of foreshadowing there for when we cover the sorcery books in the not too distant future. We're not far from the Kakbad Sea, and there is the remnants, perhaps, of the Great Wall running roughly north to south, keeping the plains of Analand safe from invaders, we assume. But yes, we can and will pay, so we reduce our gold to 5. Sueth, you learn, is one of the elders of the Halls of the Stars and lives in a small building with a splendid glass dome. Gossip tells you that the monks of this place are rather eccentric even by monkish standards, and keep themselves to themselves. They have a reputation for very odd and obscure studies, and no one is certain exactly what it is they do most of the time. You approach the monastery and rap the small gargoyle door knocker on the front door. A weedy young man in grey robes opens the door a fraction, and clearly he doesn't much like the look of you. You manage to stick 1 foot in the door and wave Henrik's papers in his face, saying that they must be delivered to Sueth urgently. "Wait a moment," the youth says, determinedly forcing the door shut despite the obstacle of your foot. Inside a minute, 2 rather older monks are staring at you round the reopened door. You explain yourself to one of them, and he says, "Oh, very well, you'd better come in. Sueth is away at the moment, but perhaps we can help." They admit you into their hallway and lead you into a Spartan room. You explain how you came by the papers you are carrying. "I am Endrel," the taller and older of the monks says, "and this is Marcus. We are 2 of the 4 elders here. Our colleagues, Sueth and Sandar, are away for a short time, though we expect Sueth back soon. May I look at the papers you have brought? Have they murdered Sueth? I'm not sure." Also not sure why I decided to sing that to myself. It's possible I'm losing my grip. Do I want to hand the papers over to him, or do I want to keep them to myself? I have no reason to distrust this monk, so I will hand the papers over. "Most interesting," Endrel murmurs, scanning the papers briefly, then studying some of them more carefully. "I think you should wait for Sueth to return. He will want to talk to you about this man Henrik, I am sure. Not that any of this means much to me, I'm afraid." "May I look at those?" the younger man asks. Endril shakes his head and hands the papers back to you, telling you to hold on to them until Suath returns. Test your spot skill. I roll a 9, which is less than my skill of 10. You notice that Endril is showing some anxiety about Marcus seeing the notes. Clearly, he doesn't want the younger man to see what has been written in them. So one of them's a wrong un. I don't know which one. Is it that Marcus is a wrong un and Endril knows it? Or is Endril a wrong un and doesn't want Marcus to find out what's in the papers so that he can do a murder on me? I feel as though one of them's going to try and do a murder on me. You must stay with us until Suath returns, Endril announces, and you are shown to a room with only a pallet bed and some very rough blankets. You are given hard bread, thin soup and a jug of water for supper, and then you settle down to sleep. Sleep doesn't come easily. The bed is very hard and it gets cold at nights. The blankets may be rough, but they don't keep you warm. They actually help to keep you awake. They're so ticklish. You toss and turn fitfully. Do you want to try and get back to sleep? I think it's what I would actually do, but probably not in an adventuring mould. Find Endril to talk some more if you haven't done so already. Find Marcus to talk some more if you haven't done so already. Or get up and explore the monastery. Well, I love poking around in other people's houses. I want to find their bookcases and DVD shelves and judge their taste in entertainment. So I will get up and explore the monastery. You gaze up and down the passages briefly to get your bearings. From outside your bedroom door, passages lead east and west. Eastwards are the rooms of the elder monks and some other chambers you don't know about. To the west, the doors to the dining hall face the main doors, and further along there are more doors. Again, you do not know where these may lead. Do you want to explore east or west? Nice bit of context there. I feel as though I want to explore eastwards rather than westwards. But is this, technically speaking, a left-right decision? Because if it is, I'll have to go left. Which would mean heading west. Unless I'm facing south. And it doesn't say which way I'm facing, so I can pretend that this is not a straight left-right decision, because it's not, without that important bit of context, so I can actually choose to explore to the east. In the east wing of the monastery there are several doors. There is one to the north, which must lead into a sizable room, judging by distances. To the south there are 2 pairs of doors facing each other, to the east and west. You know the first door to the west is Endrel's room, and you guess the one facing it must be Marcus's room. The others you do not know about. Finally, there is a door to the south. You should explore somewhere you have not visited before. When you open the door to the north, the door to Marcus's room if you haven't spoken with him already, the second door to the west, the second door to the east, or the door to the south. So, this is quite a difficult decision. I feel as though what I want to do is explore Suath's room if that can be found. And it seems to be suggesting that I can't go into Endrel's room. I could go and talk to Marcus, but I think the doors, the second door to the west and the second door to the east, are the ones I want to focus on, because I think one of those will be Suath's room, and I might be able to find some kind of clue in there as to what's actually happened to him. You push open the door of an unused guest room. If you wish to do so, you may make a brief search. Test your luck, and if you are lucky, you find 3 gold pieces in a pouch left carelessly behind. If you're unlucky, you find nothing. If you don't want to test your luck, you have nothing to do. You can search the east wing further or make for the west wing. Okay, so I don't really like telling you what the outcome of the luck test is ahead of time. Or do I? Do I like that? No, I don't think I like that. I think I do prefer keeping the outcome of a luck test a secret until you've made it, even though doing this does actually open up a little bit of design space in kind of an interesting way. And I kind of feel as though opening design space is good, but sometimes there are design principles so strong that you kind of do need to pay attention to them. And one of those is, I think, that you shouldn't find out the outcome of a luck test until you've made it. It's one thing if it's an obligatory luck test and you kind of go test your luck to see whether you are hit by the trap. If you are, lose 1d6 stamina. If you're not, don't lose anything. That's fine because the luck test isn't optional, you have to make it. But I think if it's a choice to test your luck, I feel as though you do want to keep that secret. Anyway, that's all academic at this point because there's nothing of interest and I don't have enough luck to spend it willy-nilly, so I will go and search the east wing further. I assume that means that the other door in the east is going to be a guest room as well, but I will look in it just to make sure. You find yourself in a room containing many ledgers, scrolls and documents scattered all over the place. After a swift examination, you find some ledgers of books bought and borrowed from the library of the monastery. Looking at some recent entries, you find that both Suath and Endrel have been borrowing books on Mortvania and the undead, a fact which intrigues you. You also turn up 2 gold pieces in a pouch tucked in a desk drawer. Regain a luck point. So we now have our maximum luck of 8 again, and we now have 7 gold. You guess the library is probably next door, so it should be the northern door if you want to go there. If you want to search elsewhere in the east wing, you can, or you can head for the west wing. Let's go and have a look in the library. I do like a library. You push open the door to an extensive library, which lies below the great dome of the monastery. The spiral staircase leads up to a balcony running around the dome, and there are endless bookshelves and racks of musty, dusty old documents bound up with ribbon and waxed string. Do you want to explore the library? Do you want to climb up to the dome, or do you think that exploring here will take too much time? I want to explore the library. I feel as though there's a clue here, if only I can find it. I mean, it's probably going to be a book saying vampires bad, and you can kill them with a stake through the heart, which might be news to my character, but isn't going to be news to me. There are so many books and documents in this library, and you don't really know what it is you're looking for. Test your spot skill. My spot skill is 10, and I roll a 10. That's good. On a sudden whim, you start looking for anything on Mortvania or vampires. You find a small section of books on the undead, and interestingly, a number of books are definitely missing from this section given the gap in the shelves. Several books must have been borrowed. There isn't any kind of borrowing ledger here, however. Do you want to go up to the dome, explore the east wing further, or head to the west wing? I will go up to the dome. I feel as though you do want, in your game book, in general, a decently big action sequence early doors to get people in the idea of what's going on. I don't object to rummaging around a library. It's a thing I like doing in real life. But it's not the most thrilling content for the podcast, I can't help but feel. So anyway, we're going to explore the dome. Though several telescopes have been mounted here, the dome itself has been fashioned as an observatory. For you stare through the glass and you can see the stars of the night sky clearly magnified. Marvelling at this, you notice a dark, distinctly bat-like shape glide down from the east and swoop close to the ground by the west wing of the monastery. As it descends into the darkness, you cannot make out exactly where it went. Do you want to go to the west wing of the monastery in order to follow its progress? Of course I do. As you head west past your own bedroom, the doors to the dining room are on your right and the main doors to your left. Beyond them there is another door to the left. Gently opening it, you find a silent, empty bedroom. Further along, there are 3 doors, 2 to the north and 1 to the south. Will you open the first door to the north, the second door to the north, or the door to the south? So I'm heading west, and the main doors are on my left. There seems to be a sort of west wing that projects out in front of the main doors. So I think I want to go south here. You hear a groaning sound coming from behind the door to the south. Just as you are wondering whether it's a good idea or not to open it and find out what's happening, the door is flung open, and a young monk with wild, staring eyes and his mouth frozen in a scream comes hurtling through the doorway. he flees for the main doors before you can stop him. The door that has just been opened leads into a long passageway with many monk cells off it, and the doors of some are open. A trail of blood leads into the distance. Do you want to follow this or explore elsewhere? I mean, I quite enjoy the fact that you can show no curiosity whatsoever about a trail of blood, but I would be remiss in my duties as an adventurer if I didn't take the bait and follow the trail of blood. I mean, in general, giving people choices helps create that powerful sense of immersion in a good game book, but I will say that occasionally there are times when giving you a choice can actually be slightly detrimental to immersion. When you generated a situation that's so exciting or so dangerous that you think there's only one thing that anyone in this situation would actually do, then it can make sense to actually railroad the person a little bit, and that actually creates more immersion because you're not being taken out of the action to make decisions. So, there are odd occasions where you don't want to be giving people choices. Following the trail, you stumble across the bloody corpse of a young monk. You feel sick and begin to wonder as to the wisdom of continuing until you hear another voice screaming in the distance. You rush to see if you can save this person's life. You are too late, for when you reach his cell, the monk has already been slain by the ghastly, corrupted thing which stands slavering and slobbering in front of you, blood over its arms and body. It is vaguely human, but its flesh is a sickly green colour, and its bloodshot eyes bulge out of their sockets. Tufts of wire-like black hair stick out of its blotchy scalp and exposed flesh. The monster leaps at you, hoping to add another victim for its midnight feasting. Lovely, lovely bit of writing there, and to add to the impact, there is a wonderful Martin McKenna illustration of the ghoul monk, for that is what it is described as, cowled and monstrous. Yeah, really brilliant bit of work. What I love about this piece is that McKenna's managed to sort of capture it in a way that makes it look as though it was leaning over and has just turned to face you as if disturbed by your presence and reacting with a snarl of disdain and hatred. So, cracking bit of work. And the Ghoul Monk has a skill of 8 and a stamina of 9. If it wounds me 3 times, then something happens. I imagine it paralyses me, this being the traditional MO of the fantasy ghoul. If it hits you once and you manage to defeat it, then something else happens. And if you win without being wounded at all, something else happens. So, for the first time this adventure, I'm going to roll some dice. I have defeated the Ghoul Monk. It hit me twice, reducing me to 15 points of stamina. So we have to find out what happens from being wounded twice by the Ghoul Monk. The claws of the horror are encrusted with filth and rotting flesh, and as it strikes you, it poisons your blood. You now have Bloodbane. Make a note of this on your adventure sheet. This will weaken you slowly over time, so you will have to find help and healing within a few days. So we have our first affliction. It doesn't seem great, but I meant a monastery full of clever monks. Surely one of them knows how to cure things. You stand, shaking over the body of the ghastly fiend you have just destroyed. Passing through the remaining rooms, you find one young monk who hasn't fled or been killed. He is almost paralysed with shock, his face pale and sweating. He manages to gesture to the north, but can say nothing. He must mean that the beast came from that direction, so you rush back into the main corridor. There are 2 northern doors there, one on your left and the other on your right. Will you open the left-hand one or the right-hand one? Well, this is a straight left-right decision, a very exciting one, so we will always go left. You are in a chapel with prayer mats and small idols to the gods of Titan lit by flickering candles. If you want to stay here a while to pray for guidance or look for help or clues, you can, Otherwise, you can leave and try the south door if you haven't already, or the north door further to the east. Again, I feel as though rushing about trying to find ghouls, it feels weird to then go, and I'll just take some time to pray a bit and see if the gods feel like curing my blood-based disease. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's never a bad time to pray, but sometimes you need to be doing something else at the same time. And in this case, I think what I need to be doing at the same time is trying to stop anyone else from dying from hideous monsters. So we will not stay and pray. We will head to the north door further to the east. You force your way through the door and find yourself in the kitchens. And there is an open trapdoor in the floor here, and the stench of decay drifts upwards from below. You light your lantern and set off down the stone steps towards the corridor you can see below you. Have you slain a monk in the monastery? I mean, I've slain a ghoul monk. Does that count? I genuinely don't know if that counts. Does it mean a proper monk? A proper living monk? Or does it mean anything with monk in the description? That is ambiguous. I'm going to write down the paragraph that I'm on, and I'm going to check to see if it makes any sense if I say that I have slain a monk. Okay, I think in this instance it means, have you killed an actual monk? And I have not killed an actual monk, so we will progress on that basis. You can hear someone muttering to himself. It is Endrel's voice. Must have escaped, he is cursing. He will have killed to eat. It's too late to worry now. I must get everything out of here and go to the master. Then the voice stops and you stand deadly still. But you can see a light coming towards you from the corridor below. Do you want to stay where you are and challenge Endrel? Or do you want to attack him? I will stay where I am and challenge him. I feel as though his explanation will at least be entertaining. You startle Endrel as he approaches. You say lamely that you were looking for food in the kitchen. You saw the open trapdoor and you were curious. He seems flustered and he says he thought he heard an intruder in the catacombs. He is only too happy to find some food for you in the kitchen and brews 2 herbal nightcaps for himself and for you. He escorts you back to your room, and then a young monk virtually stands guard outside. You decide to do more snooping tomorrow, as I should have attacked him. Your snooping around has aroused Endrel's suspicions, and he has given you a poisoned drink. You fail to wake up, and your adventure ends here. Whoops. Well, I consider that too early a point to call it a day, so I will invoke the sausagey finger bookmark rule, and we will go back and assume that instead of just saying, hello, to Endrel, we said, hello, I've got a sharp thing I'd like to put inside you, and just attack him. Endrel isn't aware of your presence until you leap down the few remaining steps and strike at him with your sword. He is off guard. Test your skill. If you are successful, which I am, you wound him before he can react. He loses 2 points from his stamina and you regain 1 luck point. Whether you succeed or fail, you must now fight the furious monk. Endrel has a skill of 9 and a stamina of 9 now that I've reduced him a little bit. So I'm going to roll some dice. I have defeated Endrel. He has reduced me to 13 stamina, meaning that he's technically worse at fighting than the ghoul monk was, despite having, on paper, a higher skill. So, victory is mine. The corridor leads to a maze of catacombs and passageways. The skeletons of long-dead monks gaze at you from alcoves in the walls, and bones, dust and cobwebs are everywhere. Hardly know where to begin exploring down here. This is going to take quite some time. Roll 1 dice and divide the number by 2, rounding fractions up. This is the number of blood points you lose during your extended search. So we lose 2 blood points. Blood points now reduced to 8. Eventually you see a silver tube gleaming in an alcove, and cautiously you take it down. Inside are some carefully copied notes made by Suath himself. You sit down to read by the light of your lantern, your heart beating fast. Haedric knows of our letters. I believe he has even corrupted this place with his influence. But is it Endrel, Marcus, or Sandar he has tainted? All of them avoid me now, yet none is a vampire himself. I am sure of that. Haedric must have corrupted his victim with the lure of power, or hypnotized him into his service. I must send word to Henrik regarding the soul gem the vampire now has. Until it is found, he will be invulnerable. It will be absolutely impossible to slay him. I know who crafted it, and what magic was used. I have recorded these facts in my codex, which I have hidden carefully. And I know where Haedric has made his home in these lands. Alas, the map that was sketched below these notes is illegible. It is smeared and smudged. However, you are sure that wherever the monster may be, he lies to the northeast from here. But you cannot tell exactly where. But at least you have learned of some secret of his, a magically crafted gem, so gain 2 blood points. Of the precious codex, which could tell you so much, there is no sign. So blood points now back to 10. You hear a flapping, scraping sound behind you, and looking around you see a huge black bat grinning at you. Its flight is cumbersome in these enclosed passages, and it has to draw its wings round itself, but it is making its way towards you, and it can move faster than you can. The thing has evilly glowing eyes, long, sharp teeth, and wickedly curved claws as long as your fingers. You will have to fight it here. The horned vampire bat has a skill of 8 and a stamina of 10. So, once again, I'm going to roll some dice. I have defeated the vampire bat. The horned vampire bat, I should say. It reduced me to 11 stamina points. So I'm going to take the opportunity and I'm going to eat a portion of provisions. I tuck into a steak bake and return my stamina to 15. Delicious. If you win, you decide that it is high time you got out of this place. You reckon that Suath must be dead. He learned too much. On the way out, you spot the gleam of gold at the bony feet of one of the skeletal monks. Taking this would be dishonourable. The gold must have been buried with the monks, perhaps an offering to the gods. Do you want to take the 7 gold pieces that are here? If you do, you must lose 1 faith point. Well, my faith is 9. I feel as though I need money for something. There's enough money been flung in my path that I feel as though money is going to be an important resource at some point. So, I will take the gold, giving me a total of 14 gold. I'll lose the faith point, turning my faith down to 8. And we will head on and up. As you leave the kitchen, a chilly draught tells you that the front doors to the monastery are open. There is no sign of any monk, but the southern door in the west wing is open, and the corpse of a monk has been dragged to the doorway. Blood has seeped along almost the whole passageway. You gape at the terrible sight, then you hear the sound of horses whinnying outside. You rush to the door in time to see a black coach with its driver pulling on the reins of 4 black stallions as a caped figure disappears into the coach. Do you want to attack the occupant of the coach, or does discretion make you decide not to do this? I feel as though the occupant of the coach is Haedric himself. I don't feel as though I'm ready to tangle with him yet, given that he's invulnerable, and I'm very squishy and made of blood and organs. So I will leave him to it, I think. There is a picture of a cloaked figure disappearing into a coach. I mean, it's really nice. It's Martin McKenna. Lovely bit of business with the coach itself, but I mean the cloak is just this big swooshy cloak. That's literally all you can see. So slightly odd choice as an illustration, but different, I guess. But yeah, we'll leave this mysterious figure to it. The black coach vanishes in the darkness. Somehow you have to pursue it in order to find out where the creature which has brought death and mayhem to the monks has gone. Do you want to make one final check inside the monastery before giving chase, or do you prefer to pursue the coach at once? I will pursue the coach at once. Do you have at least 8 gold pieces? I do. By great good fortune you come across a simple farmer leading a horse back to his farmstead. Damn thing escaped again. He loves running away, the wretch. Must have been all that noise of folks getting up at night that roused him, the old farmer grumbles. The horse looks distinctly perky and frisky, not the usual farm workhorse at all. If you want to, you can buy the horse, but it's going to cost you every gold piece you have, no matter how much that is. Is that a clever mechanic? I mean, it sort of is, because it lets you know that if you want the horse, the amount of gold that you manage to collect, so long as it's at least 8, is irrelevant. But on the flip side of that, why not just say that the horse costs 8 gold pieces? I mean, balancing the amount of money that players have access to is not that hard, especially not this early in the adventure. I don't get why the horse doesn't just cost 8. Anyway, I do want the horse, even though horses are evil and insane, so I will spend 14 gold on the horse in question, see if I can catch up with this carriage. Only one road leads eastwards away from the monastery of Lake Libra, so you gallop along it. By good fortune, after you have ridden for an hour, you come upon a coach which has stopped at the roadside with a broken axle. Asking the coachman, you find out that the black coach you are pursuing was seen heading eastwards along this road barely half an hour ago. Regain 1 luck point. My luck is already at maximum. Your horse seems delighted to get a decent gallop, and it's almost dawn by the time he begins to flag. Now you see a coaching inn by the roadside not far ahead. Test your skill. I fail on an 11. Pretty rubbish, but hey-ho. You unsaddle your horse and request that he be fed and watered. Then you enter the coaching inn. You ask the landlord if a man wearing a black coat has just arrived and taken rooms. He looks at you quizzically and then says in a dull voice, "Ain't no one come here this morning." When you ask again, he repeats the same line. Test your spot skill. So let's see if I can do better on this. Yes, albeit just. I roll a 10, which is just below my skill of 10. So has he been hypnotised by a vampire? I feel as though he's been hypnotised by a vampire. The landlord isn't speaking normally. You wonder whether the vampire has affected his mind. They have the power to hypnotise people after all. What will you do now? Book into the inn? Look for somewhere else to stay and sleep? Leave and keep a watch over the inn from a distance? Well, I spent all my money on a horse, so looking at that, I would suggest that booking into the inn is impossible. So I must look for somewhere else to stay and rest, or leave and keep a watch over the inn from a safe distance. Let's keep a watch over the inn. There isn't much cover for keeping watch on the inn, so you have to hide yourself as best you can in a roadside gully. However, you are desperately tired from riding through the night and soon fall asleep. You wake up later stiff and uncomfortable. Deduct 1 point from your stamina, and you must now eat a meal. So, stamina is now 14. By the time you wake up, it is almost dark. The vampire will surely be up and about soon. You pick up all your equipment and make for the stables. If you have a ring with gems in it, multiply the number of gems by 20 and then turn to the paragraph with that number. If you don't have any such ring, which of course I don't, then we're off to a different section. As you approach the stables, the dark coach with its horsemen bolts from inside. The horses gallop away like the wind. You race for your own horse, but 2 burly stablemen stand in your way. "Here, we fed and watered him," one of them says. "Ate almost his own weight, he did, greedy devil." You stare dismayed at a very smug, fat-bellied and probably slow horse. "Cost you a gold, that will. Do you have a gold piece and you are prepared to pay to get your horse back?" "I do not. I don't have any gold left." So I could fight the stableman, or do I have the codex with me? If I have, I know how many pages it has turned to the paragraph with the same number. Oh, I do love all these hidden paragraphs. You're such a clever man, making it difficult for people to cheat. I'm not salty. Oh, my only option is to fight the stableman, which seems a bit harsh. They're just doing their job. The horse did literally eat all of that thing. I owe them money for that. I don't have any money. Seems like I'm not a good person. The stablemen grab heavy pitchforks to defend themselves against your bizarre and unprovoked attack. You must fight them both together here. Alright, lads. First stableman, skill 7, stamina 7. Second stableman, skill 7, stamina 6. With a slightly heavy heart, I'm going to roll some dice. I have defeated the unfortunate stableman. They reduced me to 10 stamina. If you win, attacking these men was an evil thing to do. After all, they were only ordinary working men and hired hands. Lose 1 faith point. Yeah, but you didn't give me an opportunity to do anything other than attack them. As I didn't have any money, and I didn't have the codex. You just told me that I had to try and do a murder. Do get 2 gold pieces from them though, so that's nice. I can pay the next tradesman I come across for their services. I don't have to just stab them. Your horse is still willing, but he is slower than last night, and he cannot keep up with the fleeing count. You ride on slowly until dawn, then stop to take breakfast. You must now eat a meal. So we'll scoff down a couple of fried eggs and some toast, and that will sort us out for a nice hearty breakfast. If you have a codex with you, you know how many pages it has. Turn to the paragraph with that number. If you do not have this book, onwards. So it's good to know that the codex is findable at a relatively early stage of the adventure. Not far from the coaching inn, the road leads north-eastwards and you have a long journey ahead of you. You ask everyone you meet about the coach, and from time to time someone tells you that he has seen the infernal carriage. You can only hope you are still on the right track. If you have a horse, you need to eat 2 meals during your travels. If you are on foot, you must eat 5. Good job I have a horse. So, scoff down a few sausage rolls and a slice of pizza, and that'll be good to get me on the way. I don't know why I've decided that all my meals are coming from Greg's on this occasion. But yeah, I'm now down to 7 provisions. If you have Bloodbane, you must deduct 2 points from your initial and current stamina scores. So my initial stamina is reduced to 17. My current stamina is reduced to 8. Nothing that a portion of curly fries won't sort out. I'm going to eat a provision and take myself back up to 12. Reduce my provisions to 6. Eventually you find yourself in a small hamlet where you may buy supplies if you have any money to pay for them. You can buy provisions for 1 gold piece, which will get you 3 meals. That sounds like a good plan. Reducing my gold to 1, turning my provisions up to 9. If you want to sell a horse, if you have one, a farmer will give you 4 gold pieces for it. It's daylight robbery, but you have little choice. No one here will sell you a horse, though. They're all in short supply, except for clapped-out nags that no one in their right mind would want to own. Do you want to ask about healing, or scholars, or any magician who may be living in the area, or do you want to press on? I feel as though not having the codex means that I've already failed, so I might as well press on to my inevitable doom. I mean, it's a bit rich, the book repeatedly asking you, do you have the thing that you clearly need to finish this adventure? And me going, no, I don't have the thing that I clearly need to finish this adventure. Maybe it's possible to get the codex later from a different source. Seems unlikely, but it would be interesting design choice. But no, I think I've just missed it. As you set off on your way, the skies darken and peals of thunder can be heard coming from the north. Dark clouds scud across the sky, and the wind lashes into your face. You almost have to close your eyes against the dust and dirt being blown into your face, so the first you know about the impending danger is when a giant raven pecks at your neck. Fortunately, it is only a glancing blow. Deduct 1 point from your stamina. If you are walking, fight normally. If you are on horseback, it is hard for you to control your horse and swing a sword at the same time. Subtract 1 from your attack strength. If you wish to, you can dismount and fight normally, but you must lose 2 more stamina points as the ravens attack you while you are getting onto the ground. So first giant raven has a skill of 7 and a stamina of 6. 7 and 6 also for the second giant raven. And if I win, there's a question of whether I fought on horseback the entire time. And I think I probably will fight on horseback. I've still got a couple of points of skill on these ravens. It should be fine. Doesn't tell me whether I fight them one after the other or both at the same time. I assume I have to fight them at the same time. Once again, I'm going to roll some dice. I have defeated the giant ravens, and at no point did I feel the need to clamber down off my very high horse. They did, however, reduce me to 7 stamina. I remained on horseback for the entire combat. There must be still quite some way to go to Hadrick's mansion house if Henrik's sketch map is anything like accurate. I couldn't read the sketch map. I'm beginning to see that the main issue with this book is that it just hasn't really been redrafted at any point. It's just pure first draft stuff, and if things don't work, then whatever. After a long day's journeying, you must now eat another meal. So, some chunky vegetable soup. You decide to put in another hour or so of travel before the last day of the daylight fades. So I imagine should have been the last ray of the daylight fades. Again, adding to the idea that this has been not really edited so much as just glanced at. You notice that the road ahead of you is growing very misty and foggy. Strangely enough, the woodland to either side of the road does not appear to be covered by the thick mist at all. Do you want to continue ahead through the mist, go to the right through the woods, or go to the left through the woods? Well, we are getting towards quitting time, but in the interests of letting you know what the obviously stupid decision does, let's go straight ahead through the mists. I think we can all tell that this isn't going to be a successful adventure. As you inch forward, the mist grows thicker and yellower. The air is clammy and almost stifling. If you have lung rot, which happily I don't, you lose 4 stamina points through breathing this polluted air. Is your faith score 7 or higher? It is. A shape is forming in the mist. A bat-like creature, semi-transparent and seemingly composed of gas rather than a solid object, glides soundlessly down towards you. The eyes of the thing glow a baleful green, and it whips a long, stinged tail out at you. You must subtract 1 from your attack strength when fighting this aerial spectre. If you do not have a magic sword, when you strike the monster, it will lose only 1 stamina point, as it is resistant to non-magical weapons. The Bat Spectre has a skill of 7 and a stamina of 7. It does seem to be very much enjoying the skill 7, stamina 6 or 7 monsters. There is a picture of it. It's very good, very good. The trees, the mist, the glowing white creature looming out of them. Yup, I do like it a lot. But instead of just rolling some dice, I'm going to assume that the Bat Spectre does for me, and that this is the end of the adventure, because I feel as though I've been playing for long enough, particularly with the knowledge that I've got 0 chance of actually successfully completing this adventure. I think the whole thing with the horse costing all of your money might be one of the bits that's completely broken and stops you from finishing the game book, honestly. So maybe on my next playthrough, once I've checked I will just assume the horse costs 8 gold and we'll see what happens from there. It's frustrating because actually there's loads of bits of this that I really like. I genuinely enjoyed rummaging around through the monastery that's been afflicted by the vampire's evil, finding out that there's someone who's been corrupted and then murdering him. That was really good fun. There's some nice little bits of business on the way. It just feels as though there's not been quite enough care and attention taken over it, even on a first run through. But regardless, I am committed to going back and playing on my own time. I'm going to go away and do that. I'll be back for you with some closing remarks in just a couple of seconds. Tatty bye. Revenge of the Vampire is perhaps the perfect example of the curate's egg. Parts of it are very good indeed, but the bits that are bad drag the whole thing down to such an extent that I'd struggle to call it anything other than a failure when considered in totality. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. This is lamentably badly edited and proofread. It's clearly a first draft that's been published with barely any attention to checking that things actually work as intended. There's the missing scenes in the coaching inn, there's paragraphs that point to the wrong paragraph, there's spelling errors, the rules reference non-existent magic points, and at least one of the codes where you have to turn letters into numbers and add them up is wrong. It's incredibly shoddy work on that basic level, but there's nothing really interesting you can derive from this except to say that playtesting, at least a bit, really matters, and a professional publishing house has no business putting out something that's in this state. If you're writing, maybe try and make sure it's finished before you publish it, would be my advice. If a video game came out in this broken state, the publisher would immediately issue a roadmap explaining how they were going to support it for the long term with bug fixes and a robust slate of additional content. Then nothing would happen. Then the game would be quietly shuttered. 2025 live service model is a vibe you should avoid at all costs. That is hardly the most revelatory of learning points, so let's move on to other, more interesting things to discuss. I honestly found this quite a gruelling book to get through. It's very long, with a successful playthrough seeing a significant chunk of the total paragraphs. From the monastery, you've got to chase the vampire to his mansion, head off to find the soul gem, which is attached to another relatively detailed area, then fight your way through the mansion before heading north for a final dungeon in the hills. It's not actually a bad structure, and it strikes a balance between different types of adventuring that I do like. You've got wilderness travel, a decent number of NPCs, a few villages, and several more traditional dungeons. I think the opening in the monastery is very strong, despite my misgivings on the recording. There's a whole bunch of ways for it to pan out, which makes it a lot of fun to explore again on subsequent playthroughs. It's just unfortunate that the overall experience feels like more of a test of endurance than anything else. There's lots of fights, though not that many which are absolutely required on the correct path, though the chances are you will see a lot of them on your successful playthrough. Some of the fights are quite interesting, I'll have more to say about that later, but there's plenty that feel kind of repetitive. I don't think any book needs this many ghouls. There's so many ghouls. Ghouls as far as the eye can see. I like a ghoul as much as the next man, but they really feel like a one and done fight to me. A familiar monster with the classic paralysis attack if you get hit too many times. One ghoul is fun, but the returns, they diminish very rapidly thereafter. If you are going to do a long path to the finish line, then you do need to be wary of repetition. You need to go out of your way to try and come up with things that feel fun and different for every step of the adventure. And that's something that can be quite hard when you're trammelled by genre specifics, like in Revenge of the Vampire. You want to keep up the horror vibe, but ultimately a lot of those horror encounters can wind up blurring together in an unhelpful way over the long haul, and horror in particular does tend to work better in small doses, provided we accept Stephen King as a notorious outlier in this regard. In general, I think the horror here is quite well presented, and it feels a little bit more grown up than some of the horror in earlier books, perhaps reflecting that the audience for the later books is a little bit older than the audience for the earlier books. The art certainly feels like it's appropriately gruesome for a horror tale, and actually the art is very strong throughout. Martin McKenna was a huge talent, and his ability to shift between the grotesque and the beautiful is ideally suited to gothic horror, as he renders rotting corpses and eerily attractive vampire women with equal aplomb. There's even a few sly visual references to the cult 1974 British horror movie Vampires, with a Y, which would definitely not be suitable for younger readers, as it features quite a lot of footage of vampires with their clothes off. There is a lovely section where you can find a healer beyond the monastery, and it turns out he's one of the missing sages from that monastery, and Heydrich has hypnotised him and driven him mad so that he'll try to kill you. And he's been in this abandoned house for 3 weeks doing mental experiments on the dead, and it's just great, and it does have that more mature vibe to it. As well as filling in some backstory, it really sells Heydrich as an evil, manipulative vampire. It's one of the things that helps make Heydrich feel present in the story as the main villain. You don't get to face Heydrich directly until almost the end, apart from running after him when he's in his coach, but there is a good sense that he is about and doing evil things for the entire run, which makes him feel less remote than some of the villains, who just politely sit in their lair and wait for you to come knocking. We've had some really good villains in the fighting fantasy books lately, and I very much appreciate it. In some ways, the biggest problem is that the book is written so as to make exploring many areas exhaustively quite doable. This has the odd effect of making it feel quite linear, even while giving you lots of choice on paper. It's slightly counterintuitive, but I think these kind of designs don't actually work as well as it feels like they ought. On the one hand, being able to explore a house, a cave system, or a monastery fully feels more realistic. In a role-playing game, you'll usually be able to be quite thorough when exploring a space, and modelling that should be a good thing. Not being able to double back definitely feels a bit weird in game books, and it's one of those things that crops up quite regularly as a thing that has an impact on immersion. However, the central mechanic of game books is choosing between different actions and those actions having consequences for the story. And one of the most impactful consequences is not being able to choose the alternative route. And if you take that away, then it tends to lower the stakes. By letting people explore freely, you're actually messing with the absolute heart of game books as a premise. If you can choose to go both left and right, you're going to have to work much harder to create meaningful consequences for either decision. And it's going to make every playthrough feel kind of the same, because you'll just go both, at least until you've worked out whether both of them are required. This has other consequences as well. Knowing that you can explore an entire area creates a perverse incentive to play systematically. Tracking what is where is much easier if you go through the various options in the order they are presented, regardless of whether you think that some of the options seem more appealing. Suddenly, you're not a warrior engaged in an exciting adventure, you're just working your way through a checklist, as if you were a minor functionary checking if the fire extinguishers are all where they're supposed to be. It turns the whole thing into a kind of stock take. I think more than anything else, that contributed to me finding stretches of this book a bit like hard work. The vampire's mansion in particular just seemed like a chore, rummaging through the rooms in sequence and feeling like I needed to keep going even once I'd found the route into the next area, because I didn't want to miss some kind of necessary item. This is another way that game books have conditioned me over the years. I feel certain that I'm going to need a laundry list of items, so I'm always going to rummage very thoroughly if you give me the opportunity. Actually, in this case, it's not something you need to worry about that much. One of the better elements of the book is that there's not much that's absolutely required, although there is plenty of stuff that will make your life a lot easier. In terms of absolutely required items, there's the soul gem, a way of burning a particular monster, and a magic sword, all of which are strictly necessary for beating the book. but I don't think there's anything else that's 100% required. There's multiple magical swords you can find. 2 different items can be used to burn the monster, and the book goes out of its way to make sure you'll at least get a chance of finding the soul gem. The easiest way to get there would be Sueth's Codex, which is technically impossible to find if you play honestly, but happily there are alternative paths to discovering its location. You can even do part of the mansion, then leave to find the gem, and then come back. That's a neat bit of design. On the other hand, however, there is a chance for my current least favourite trope in all of fighting fantasy to rear its ugly head, the shopping trip. Yes, there is a market, and at that market you will be presented with a long list of items and told to guess which ones might be worth buying with your limited funds. I'm so bored of this experience. It was fun when Yaztromo did it in Forest of Doom, but it's very old hat by this point. I think there are ways and means of making it a bit more interesting. You can break up the stalls so that each is a little individual encounter, or you can turn the marketplace into more of an adventure location. Those are 2 good approaches. Providing weirder and more interesting things to buy than lengths of rope or a hammer and nails, that's also a good choice. I remember the one where we had the opportunity to buy relics of saints. That was a real breath of fresh air. I think it works best when you've got a very good idea of what you want to buy and you can make a case for everything that's on offer, but even then it's setting you up for a fall in a way that just feels cheap and aggravating at this point. You fool, why did you buy the axe instead of the cheese grater? Did you not realise that the back half of the adventure is stuffed with cheese golems? At least in this case, it's all about the items making life a little bit easier rather than just stopping you in your tracks, so that is something. The relative generosity with regard to items means that the difficulty level of the book is more based on things gradually killing you, rather than there being specific roadblocks in your way if you haven't done things exactly right. You can blunder your way to the finish line provided you get a little bit lucky with some dice rolls. There's a few things that will tend to conspire to finish you off if you aren't playing optimally. If you run into just too many ghouls, sooner or later one of them will get lucky and paralyse you and that'll be game over. Similar with some of the vampire encounters as well. And I like the fact that you can blunder your way to the finish line here because, as I say, it is a long old route to the finale. I would not have wanted to go through the whole thing again once I got onto the home stretch, but I'd got all the information I needed to get through the final encounters fairly handily, and that was nice. The finale is good, a simple enough 2-stage affair, and Keith Martin does love a 2-stage finale. And it does the thing where the vampire has a genuinely imposing stat line with a skill of 15, but you can whittle that down a bit if you've made the right choices and picked up the right items. A high skill is recommended, but there's enough fights to make that abundantly obvious before you get to the finale. Also, the picture of Hadric that accompanies the final confrontation is amazing. He's got this real Scooby-Doo villain energy, like he's shaking his fists and railing against some meddling kids. It's top work. With the broadly manageable difficulty overall, there's some very odd design choices along the way with regard to anti-cheating. There's loads of points where you will be instructed to add letters together to turn to a specific section, or check the number of facets on a jewel or pages in a book or whatever. I find this sort of thing irritating enough when it's being done for a big impressive moment, but in Revenge of the Vampire it seems to be done for all kinds of random stuff, some of which barely matters. There's one in the monastery where you have to add some letters together to let you know that there's a monster in the cellar, which is faintly useful, but something that you'll almost inevitably find out just by exploring. I don't get why there's any need to make the player solve a code which is broken, by the way, when you could just ask if they visited the relevant character. I think this is the author reaching for a thing he's used before without stopping to think about whether it's justified. He just feels as though he needs to include letter codes and jewels with specific number of facets, and he's going to, regardless of the story impact. With this kind of thing, I firmly believe that less is more and none is most of all, but if you're going to make people jump through a hoop, at least put a treat on the other side. And here there's often nothing much of interest, which seems willfully perverse. When you make people do codes and that, you are signalling that there's something important going on, and it's peculiar if half the time there isn't. I said that there's too many fights, and there's definitely too many fights with ghouls, but there are plenty of standout combat moments in this book. There's some very inventive monster design, as well as some fun imagery for the artist to get his teeth into. There's a neat recurring combat rule around vampires being able to infect you with their taint if they roll absurdly well, which is characterful, if quite lethal. There's a fight with a vampiric jelly, which is slowly absorbing an NPC, and that puts you on a clock to beat it before it's fully absorbed the NPC, and that's influenced by how long it took you to climb a wall just before the fight starts as well. Really, really good stuff. There's a lovely little fight with a near mindless corpse golem which only cares about attack, and that will do damage to you if it rolls well enough, regardless of whether or not you've managed to beat its combat roll. It's a great rule because it creates narrative as well as an additional challenge to the fight, and that's one of my absolute favourite things to do with combat rules. I love the way it really mechanically delivers on the idea of a monster that's just attacking all the time. And if we're looking at systems, I think the Faith system works pretty well here, as it did in Vault of the Vampire, to be fair. Adding to Faith feels good and makes it so that certain fights are easier or occasionally harder, depending on how much faith you have. It feels present in the text at multiple points, and that's all good. Blood points don't really work that well for me. As a measure of your enemy's power, it feels counterintuitive to be adding to the total whenever the enemy gets weaker. It feels as though blood points should go up when the enemy's stronger and down when the enemy is weaker to me. That could just be me. And it doesn't really feel like it does enough to justify itself either. They don't do anything until the finale, which is fine, but the effect they have is relatively weak, and if you're going to do this sort of thing, make it a really impactful mechanic to justify the bookkeeping and the build-up, because when you put a mechanic like this in, you are creating an expectation, and if you don't deliver on that expectation, it's bad. Getting blood points is sort of useful, but not vital, and it should really have been vital. Overall, there's plenty of stuff to like in Revenge of the Vampire, but it's hard to really enjoy it because it's all too long and everything just feels a bit slapdash. Some of the choices you're offered don't quite feel realistic or right in some way. There's odd moments where the continuity breaks down and that takes you out of the action. There is a really good book in here somewhere. It just never quite materialises in a way that satisfies, and I think that's something of a recurring feature of Martin's work. He wrote 8 books for fighting fantasy, and while 2 of them are great, Vault of the Vampire, my favourite, and Master of Chaos, which is really, really solid, all of his other books have some kind of issue with them. Island of the Undead and Night Dragon both have some absolutely standout moments, but finish with a bit of a slog. Stealer of Souls is a very standard first book. Tower of Destruction 2 just feels a bit ordinary. This one is too much like a first draft, and Legend of Zagor was just trying too hard to be a board game in book form. He's always had some tremendous ideas and ambitious goals, but there's often something missing, and in some ways I think it's simply that he's too much of a designer and not enough of a writer. His gamebooks have systems galore, but they'd often benefit from having a little bit more of the book and a little bit less of the game about them. Still, much of his output is enjoyable, and even at his worst, there's always stuff that I like in there. He's throwing things at the wall constantly, and I always appreciate that. And I'm sad that I'll not be reading any more of his work on this journey. That is all for this episode. I do need to let you know that voting is now open for the Linderbaum Prize, the competition for the best 100 section game book. There's been a real treasure trove of entries this year, and you should play them all and then go and vote for your favourite. Last year there were some outstanding entries, and I expect the same high standard this year. please do go and check it out. It's free game books. What's not to like? I should also let you know that we're going to be doing things in a little bit of a different order for the next few episodes. Instead of a bonus episode, the next episode will be the final episode covering the original run of Fighting Fantasy books, as we play Curse of the Mummy, though there will still be plenty of Fighting Fantasy books to get through before we're done with the series. Following that, we'll be doing a pair of bonus episodes, finishing off the Way of the Tiger series, before returning to the usual cadence of a bonus episode, followed by a main episode each month. I just really wanted to do the 2 final Way of the Tiger books back to back, which is something that one of my listeners advised would also be a good idea, and this seemed like the simplest way to do it. So, the same number of episodes each month, but in a slightly different order. Don't forget you can get in touch with me either by email at hjdoomretrofun, all one word, at gmail.com, or by following me on Blue Sky at hjdoom. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, and I'll see you soon.